what's more important to me is to give people a space to feel things.
Yeah.
I think that that's the purpose of music and art, is to facilitate the feeling of emotions. And I think that a lot of the problems in our world are because people are not in touch with their emotions. So that's how I see that music and art is essential for our survival as a species. And my little role in that is to do that kind of thing.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here in Hobart again, in a beautiful spot. I mean, look at this space. And I'm here with Tilley, musician and vocal coach. And Tilley, just thank you so much for inviting us into into your home.
No problem.
Your space. I guess this is where you make music.
Correct.
Yeah?
That's where it happens. Mm-hmm.
And do you write your own music?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, you were telling me before you have a song called Precarity. So definitely want to get to that, because as regular listeners and viewers know, that is a hot topic for me. It's really why we make the podcast, as I was telling you before. So do you sit at the piano, or how does it happen for you?
Well, I have 2 guitars and the piano, so just depends which instrument I pick up in the moment, I guess.
Yeah.
Or I might be cleaning or something and singing to myself, and some little bit comes and I'll record it on my phone to come back to later.
Okay.
That's generally how it starts.
Francis Cameron was on the podcast previously and talked about that, how you may be in a different space and something will come to you and make a note and bring it back to the...
I have a fantasy that, like, when I'm rich and famous, I'll have my entire house bugged, so just recording in every room, just constantly rolling, maybe just recording over itself every 24 hours, so that when I have ideas in the shower I can actually recover them instead of forgetting as soon as I leave the room.
Waterproof bugs in the shower.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. But only on, you actually need some sort of intelligence in it, so it knows when you...
I would maybe just press a button and be like, mark this point.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
So if anybody out there wants to, has the technology to make that happen for me, get in touch.
Fantastic. Yeah. So guitar, piano, do you play anything else? I mean...
Not really. I used to play ukulele a little bit when I first started performing original stuff, but haven't done that for a long time. Yeah. And you sang and played guitar at TEDx, which was where I first discovered. Yeah, and I was saying before, I was in the front row, expecting to hear people talking about interesting things that interest them, and your voice just came up over the top of me and back round and just enveloped me, and I was like, oh, wow, it was so cool. Where did it all begin for you? I mean, how did you get to that? I suppose what I'm trying to understand is, so guitar, piano, singing, songwriting, what would have been the spark for you, and when? Well, my mum informs me that I was singing before I could talk. So there was that. So I've always been singing. Sometimes I say I did that and then I never shut up after that. So I took singing lessons as a kid in various places, and I probably started learning guitar. I think I was about 14 when I learnt guitar. And and then I did a degree in contemporary voice and continued studying the voice after that in various ways. And writing songs probably began when I first started playing guitar as well.
Yeah, right. Okay. So guitar came after studying?
No, guitar was when I was like 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, I guess they go hand in hand. You learn
someone else's song and then you steal the chords and move them around a little bit and make your own song.
Okay, yeah. So I was telling you before, my mum was a musician, and so I obviously had music lessons, but I could never pick it up. I could never. So piano, guitar, and then my guitar teacher moved away and couldn't get another guitar teacher. So then trumpet, and that was a disaster. So I am not very musical. I appreciate good music. So yeah, no, I'm a complete novice here in this conversation. So that's why I'm asking these really basic questions, I suppose. I'd love to just know. This sort of, how does your creative process sort of come together between the instruments, your voice, your songwriting? So what if we, that's what I'm really trying to understand is.
Yeah, I guess songs usually start really with chords for me. This is a question songwriters get asked a lot. What do you start with, lyrics or melody or chords? For me, it's chords, because I think that gives the song like a world that it lives in when I start playing some chords. So as I said, I will sometimes just steal from someone else's song that I've learnt. Or I'll just sit down, put my hands on the piano or the guitar and just find something and start doing something. So that gives you that world, that atmosphere, the harmonic place that the song gives you, the vibe. So then what it's about kind of comes through from that generally, unless it is just sometimes I will come up with just little lyric ideas or a little melody idea, but most often it's the chords.
I often wonder how, I couldn't name particular songs off the top of my head or artists that sing those songs, but suddenly the melody will come into my head or something, or the chords. But I would often wonder, like, there must be a finite number. I mean, there's probably thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands but there must be a finite number of ways of bringing all of those.
Yeah, maybe.
Things
I
together.
mean, the thing, like, there's definitely a finite number chord progressions wise, but there's so many different things you can do in a chord progression. Like, if you just have like C, F, G, which is a really basic chord progression, but you can add ninths and sevenths and alterations and extensions, and you can voice it differently and it sounds different on piano and guitar, and then it's what's the rhythm that you play it with. And then, the same with the melody. It can be the same melody sung with different rhythm, or, there's a lot of different stuff that you can play with in music.
Yeah. I suppose it's that point you made about borrowing chords to get started. And I suppose if I'm sort of just singing to myself in the shower, or just humming along or something. My dad was a great whistler, so it's a terrible habit I have now. I'm in my 50s, but it's this thing of suddenly it will just morph into something, a piece of music that already exists. But the thing about your practice is that you're able to take those chords and make something new with them, from them, and that's something I just, as I say, I can relate to. I can't relate to it in a practical way, and so how does it all come together, and how long would that sort of process take you if you've perhaps been in the kitchen and made a note, and then from that to how you get to something that you perform in public?
I guess it depends. It's different every time. The best songs usually come very fast.
Yeah.
So often artists will describe it like they just kind of fall out of the sky and like, oh, here's a whole song.
Yeah.
So my best songs would always be written very quickly, maybe within half an hour. But sometimes I have songs that I work on, I put away and come back to years later. So that are worked on over years. I guess it varies.
Yeah, sure. And that would be similar in other arts practices. I mean, in my photography, there's prints I want to make in the darkroom that the photographs were taken years ago, and I still haven't got it where I want it to be. But so anyway, I that helps me to really try to understand. Yeah, getting back to where you finished studying. How did your practice then? What did you do with your practice? Did you start gigging, or were you writing for others, or performing as part of a band? Or I mean, how did you begin your musical career?
Yeah, I guess I was performing. I probably started performing my original songs, I think, around the time that I was finishing my degree. So I finished in 2012, and I probably started performing my original stuff like 2011 maybe, and put out my record in the end of 2012 as well. That was a big year. I think it was 2012. Yeah. And so like I'd been performing in other contexts. My degree, it was contemporary voice, but they focused it around jazz. Mm-hmm. So I was doing a bit of jazz. I had a little jazz band and did some, weddings and gigs in bars and stuff like that. And then I tried to expand the original performance from there. And I moved to Melbourne a couple of years later to try to do more music and do more voice study, and that was how that went.
Yeah. And I seem to remember from TEDx that there was mentioned, I think when you were introduced, it was mentioned that you'd worked with Blur. Now, Blur is...
That's a slightly exaggerated claim.
Oh, okay. So we don't want to go there then.
No, it's. I can just tell you what actually happened, which is that I was a member of the Southern Gospel Choir down here, which is a really great choir.
Yeah.
Did that for about 9 years, and one year, I guess it was 2014, Damon Albarn, who is the lead singer from Blur and also the creator of Gorillaz, along with a visual artist, and he was doing his Australian tour for his solo record Everyday Robots and needed some backing vocalists. So his team contacted our choir and said, we need some people. And I don't think the director of the choir, I don't think he really knew who Damon was. He was like, oh, there's this British guy, he's all right, I guess. I also didn't know who he was. I remembered seeing Gorillaz film clips on Rage when I was a kid, which I thought were a bit scary at the time. But I was like, oh yeah, and he's that song that's like, woohoo, okay, I kind of know who that guy is.
Yeah.
So it was me and 5 other singers, and we just recorded a little like audition tape and sent it, and they were like, cool, you're in. So we ended up doing a show at the Tilley in Melbourne and 2 at the Sydney Opera House, just singing backing vocals for him on his solo stuff. So it's not quite working with Blur, but it was pretty cool.
Damon's awesome. 2009, I was at Hyde Park when they did their Hyde Park show, and wow. Yeah, no, I was 90s uni student. Blur was everything.
And I'm just like, where are you from originally? Where's your accent from?
I'm from England. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
specifically, in England?
I'm from the southwest. Yeah, yeah. They're a bit further east where they're from.
My mum's from Nottingham.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was at uni in Liverpool.
It's the thing, like in Australia, if you mention Damon, or like half people know Blur and Gorillaz, but in England, like he's massive. Yeah. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
But here it's like people either like are a massive fan, they're like, oh, that's awesome, or they're like, who? They really have no idea. So you get one of 2 reactions here.
Yeah. So what are your influences then?
Good question.
Yeah.
I definitely would say his record, Everyday Robots, influenced my last record, which is called Close. It's a really good question because there's a lot and it's quite broad. Some people coming to mind, we were just listening to Morton. They're a band in Queensland, and just incredible songwriting and really beautiful instrument sounds and production. Moses Sumney is a really amazing, he's American. I'm really drawn to music that really creates it feels like a landscape, where the production and the way that it's recorded and the instrument sounds are very atmospheric. So yeah, and then of course Moses Sumney's vocals are great. There's also Nakane. Nakane is an incredible, have you heard of them? South African, based in London, I think. Just incredible voice, and again, just such interesting production, interesting instrumental arrangements, and just it feels like a world that you can just sort of dive into. So that was definitely something that influenced me when I was making my last record.
Yeah, and what I'm getting a sense of is when I watch a movie, I am watching it with thinking about how did the director do this and that, right? So you're listening to music, the way what you've just described there is there's this whole atmosphere that you are taking in that me myself as a layperson just I like that. I don't know why.
I wouldn't like. I'm definitely not. I don't have a lot of experience in production, so if there's one regret that I have in my life, it is that I did not learn how to produce tracks when I was in my early 20s and at uni and stuff. Because that would have saved me a lot of money if I could produce my own stuff, whereas I have to pay people to do that for me.
Yeah.
I sat with my producer in the making of my last record. I was there in the room, helping choose the sounds and putting it all together. And I hoped that I would learn from that process. And we did it mostly in Ableton. But when you aren't using a tool regularly, you don't really. So I still have no idea how to do production. But so when I'm listening to a record, I'm certainly not going like, "Oh, that's an interesting." Unless I'm deliberately doing that, like I will turn on my analytical ears if I'm interested, but I'm not like, that synth sound and this plugin and whatever. It's just a very emotional experience, and it's that just feeling of, I guess, mental images and the feeling of how it feels to listen to.
Yeah. And do you work with the same producer every time? I mean, do you have a team of people you work with, or that changes and moves?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've only made 2 records. So my last record was in 2018, which seems like an absurd amount of time ago now. But so I worked with one producer on that record, and we pretty much did everything all ourselves, and then got in a couple of instrumentalists to play some bass and drums and guitar on that record. And my previous record was just like a live in studio kind of thing mostly, so it was just me, all one take for most of those tracks. I'm really interested, I love collaborating. I don't like doing music by myself. I find it very boring. So music for me is about working with other people, and what I'm interested in now and what I am trying to work towards is I have a whole bunch of songs. I've recorded some demos, and I have 4 or 5 people in mind that I'd like to do one track with each of these different producers. Gotcha. And then see what grows from there.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because they'll each have their own way of working there, and each one, you'll find your sound, I suppose. Yeah, through that. Yeah, but how their sound and your sound comes. Sorry, using very plain language, but there's how those two things to come together to create the thing that you're looking for. Is it? Are you searching for a sound?
Yeah, I guess gathering little influences and inspirations, and the people that I have in mind that I like to work with, it's because I've really enjoyed the sound of what they've made previously. So I think I'm a firm believer in getting the right person for the job, and not like going, okay, I'm just going to work with this person because they're fancy and I'm going to try to make the thing happen how I want it to happen. I'm like, okay, this person is really good at creating these kind of sounds, so let's take that as a starting point and see what they want to do with my song. Yeah.
So recording live, how about live music? Do you do a lot of that?
Not heaps.
No.
I have I came to a point where I was a bit burnt out on doing music, and had a forced pause, which you could maybe guess when and what that was.
Yes.
So when that happened, I was living in Melbourne, and I was running my business, doing vocal coaching, and also trying to do the music thing. And I'd say I was a little bit clueless in terms of how to go about getting gigs or the right kind of gigs or whatever. But I'd kind of been trying, but it was a lot kind of running two businesses by yourself.
Yeah.
And I didn't have very good boundaries around work. You know, I would work till late at night and all this kind of thing. So when that happened, it gave me the chance to really go, okay, I don't think this is working for me. And I decided to hold the idea of like, what if I'm not a musician? Just like put that there and just go, okay. Because I think a lot of people are very attached to their identity as a musician and artist, and I didn't want to be overly attached to that identity. So I just wanted to go, okay, if not that, then what? So I spent some time with that, and I knew that I would kind of come back to it, but I just didn't know how to actually make it work. And I think I'm still figuring that out. But I moved back to Hobart, and I realised what I don't want to do, which is be background music in pubs for people to talk over. So my music is very, as I warned the sound, I just came back from playing Cygnet Folk Festival on the weekend.
Oh yeah.
And I warned the sound engineer, I said, so I'm really dynamic. I go like really quiet and then really loud. So I don't know if you want to just take that information, do with your professional things with that, maybe some compression, I don't know. So yeah, I'm very expressive. There's lots of big feelings, and it really means a lot to me doing music. So I really don't enjoy just being background music. It makes me feel really crap. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Feel free to say whatever you wish.
Great. So yeah, you know, when I've played gigs where people are talking, I just feel really bad. So I just was like, right, I don't want to do that. So that really limits the amount of gigs that are available to you and the amount of the types of venues that you can play in. And Hobart doesn't have a lot of venues as it is. I think they lost a lot in the last however many years. A few different venues that used to be really active that now either don't exist or are quite different. So I'm interested in the kinds of performances that do something a bit different. So while I do enjoy playing festivals like I've just done, I also really love house concerts.
Yeah.
And there is a group called the Hobart House Concert Collective. And so they've been doing backyard gigs, and we might try to do one here sometime. Nice. And that's just a really great environment because everybody is there just to listen to the music. And so that's the kind of show that I'm interested in. And I'm also interested in doing performances that are in spaces that aren't bars or pubs, where alcohol isn't the centre of everything. I'm interested in music as a healing tool. Okay. So I'd really like to create more opportunities for people to come and really be moved and affected by music, not just it be a let's party kind of thing.
Well, as I said, when I was at TEDx and yeah, your voice just captivated me. I leapt to my feet when you finished through the applause. You really affected me, and it wasn't just that it was unexpected. It was almost like, okay, there's someone coming on the stage with a guitar and they're going to sing, and oh, it's even more than what I'm. Yeah, just the way you did so much more, and so I understand where you're coming from. That you don't want to be background music for someone else's entertainment. It's more than that. It means so much more to you. You know, and that's what makes it art, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Do you see it as art?
Yep. Yeah. I think that what you said, you know, entertainment. That I think a lot of the arts that is mainstream promoted and promotable is entertainment, and I don't think that's my thing. I think I would like to do it as well. If I had all the time, like one of my dreams is to have, I had one gig, I started a band in Melbourne, and that was a glam funk rock band.
Nice.
And we had one gig and I got to wear platform heels and do like power slides, and I was climbing on top of the venue had like a veranda thing around it, and you know, I was like putting my leg over that and all sorts of crazy stuff. And that's like, I love you know, like Prince is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I love having a great time on stage and I have a lot of energy that I can bring, and love to make people dance. So like I also have the capacity to be an entertainer, and that's great. But I barely have enough time and energy and money to make my singular musical project happen. So maybe someday I'll do that kind of thing as well. But I think what's more important to me is to give people a space to feel things. I think that that's the purpose of music and art, is to facilitate the feeling of emotions. And I think that a lot of the problems in our world are because people are not in touch with their emotions. So that's how I see that music and art is essential for our survival as a species. And my little role in that is to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's cultural. Music is something that we all experience in some way. As I say, you know, I'm quite naive in understanding the process of making music, but when I hear it, it's like food. It's like, it's a cultural signifier. It can transport us to places. I did want to ask you about your song Precarity. Did that come out of your COVID experience?
No, I think probably I wrote Precarity here in Hobart maybe about 2 years ago. I think that I wrote that song.
Okay.
I think that one mainly came about because I tried playing in drop D for the first time, which is when you tune the lowest string down a couple steps. So whenever I have a new instrument or a new tuning, then new songs will come out of that. So that was my first song I think I wrote in drop D.
Okay, and what is it about? What I think it's about?
It's funny because my partner, who's been around for 2.5 years now, he's really great with. I'll often ask him for feedback on my songs, and he's got great taste in music and art, so he gives me really valuable thoughts as an audience member. And then the other day we were talking about that song, and because actually what I'd said was my set for Cygnet Folk Festival, which I also tried to do something a little bit different with, I also realised it had no love songs in it. Like there's some love in the songs, but it's not like relationship songs.
Yeah.
So which I was quite proud of, because you can get stuck in the rut of writing those kind of songs, and that they're very much easier to write. So I was really happy when I managed to start writing about a lot more other stuff. And then we were talking about Precarity, and I was like, do you actually know what that song's about? And he was like, not really. But he doesn't tune into the lyrics as much, but he has heard the song like 1,000 times now. So anyways, it is, so the reason that the song is called Precarity, the first line says, entertaining precarity, holding on by a finger to see what you'll do with me. So I just kind of have this image of me like hanging off a cliff by one finger and being blown around by the wind. I guess it's about surrendering to an experience and not trying to force things or like make something happen, but just like, okay, let's see what wants to happen instead.
That's an incredible image. Yeah, I felt something then as you were describing it. Kurt Vonnegut, the author, talks about being an artist, you've got to jump off the cliff and learn how to fly. And so you've jumped off the cliff, but you're hanging on to the ledge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that gives me plenty to think about. But yeah, that's precarity, right? So it's obviously I've written about it extensively. It fascinates me because I haven't lived as an artist and haven't felt that the precarities that come with that. But I guess I asked in relation to your COVID experience. You said you were in Melbourne, extended lockdowns, and unable to perform in person or in public, I guess, for a long time. But it's the uncertainty that would have come from those times, I suppose. But that hasn't informed this particular song.
Not that song, no. Yeah, it's funny, I have a song called The Sickness.
Yep.
which I usually joke when I play it. Not a joke, but just, I play this song, which is called The Sickness, and it mentions that term a lot. And then the last line of the song is, may we all get sick together, maybe then we will change. But that song came out on my last record, which came out in 2018.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Sometimes you don't realize what a song is about until afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
It's not really what that song's about for me, but it can definitely be interpreted in that way. I remember I played it at Mona one time, and Kershala, David Walsh's wife, was in the audience, and I made a joke about, predicting the future or something, and she was like, "Can you be careful what you write about in the future?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll just write about winning the lottery next time."
But yeah, but then I suppose that's an interesting thing about interpretation. You perform the song and you put it out there, and then the audience can take whatever they want from it. So yeah, just because I'm trying to make a connection between precarity and COVID, it doesn't mean that was your intent.
That can be what the song's about for you. That's fine.
But it's more general than that. I mean, that's the thing for me. That's why I do what I do, is because it wasn't COVID that made artists precarious. It's always been that way. And as far as those in power are concerned, as far as the system is concerned, because I don't think there's any particular people who are controlling it. It's just the way the system works. But it's going to be that way forever. But no, Connect, Curate, Create is all about shifting the narrative, because it doesn't have to be that way. So I guess I want to get to vocal coaching. I mean, is that how you, I'll just use the term, make a living? Mm-hmm. Is that
I pay my bills, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'd say it's my other passion. I really enjoy it, and I've been doing it, I guess, since about 2011. I probably started teaching, and I never thought that I wanted to do teaching. I just didn't think that I would like it until I started doing it, just because I had some friends who asked me to teach them how to sing. So, and I started doing it and realized that I really enjoy it and find it really rewarding. So I work with a lot of different types of people, which is really great. I also really get super bored if I do the same thing too much.
Yeah.
So I, 3 days a week, I see clients, and they are, I have some professional performers who maybe are having vocal fatigue issues, or they have little limitations to their singing that they want to be able to kind of get around. I have total beginners who have never sung a note in front of anyone else in their entire life and are absolutely terrified. And I have, most of my clients are adults. I have a few teenagers. Mostly the teenagers are into musical theatre or maybe interested in songwriting. So it's really rewarding for me, because I get to meet a lot of different people and hear a lot of different types of music, and it's super fun. And it's part of that thing that drives me again around feelings, because I think the artist's role, the performer's role, musician's role on stage is to create a space where people can feel what they need to feel, and then process and heal and grow through that. And the act of singing as well is also an expression and gives us a chance to feel things and process things. So I'm really passionate about that singing is for everyone. Everyone can sing. If they want to sing, they should feel welcome to sing. And the same for the arts and creating in general, just because, for me, I really feel, my calling in life is to be a musician, and you don't have to have that, like, that's my thing to make music. Humans are inherently musical. Yeah. We all are. So I really want everyone to feel welcome to sing or to create in whatever way works for them. And that is a way of also facilitating that same getting in touch with how we feel.
Yeah. It takes me back to my mum teaching. I don't know if she'd ever call herself vocal coach, but she had this one student who just kept coming back every week, year after year after year. And us kids, we were sent upstairs to our bedrooms to do our homework or whatever. But you'd hear not just the singing, but the learning happening. But there was this whole affective experience that was coming up through the floorboards, and I think the meaning that, what it meant to each of them, what they were getting out of that exchange, the teacher and the learner, and passing on that, passing on something through doing and feeling that, and it must be incredibly rewarding for you to be a vocal coach. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to make money from something that I really enjoy and that I feel actually helps other people as well. I think it's difficult because obviously being a musician doesn't make a lot of money, even if, I feel I'm still kind of early in my career, but even for people who you would think of as very successful, people that we hear on the radio, people who have a hit or whatever, there is no financial stability guaranteed from that. No. I think a lot of people who are not in the arts probably might not understand that, and they think of these people, if they're seeing them on TV, they must be rich. But, it's very rare that there is a musician who is not in debt from making music, or makes enough to live on from making music. There's usually other things going on. If someone's able to do music, performing, recording full time, and aren't in debt, there's, usually there's a partner. They have a partner who has a stable, well-paid job, or maybe they have rich parents or something. It's very rare that music pays you enough to live off. So a lot of musicians have day jobs, and I'm just really lucky that my day job happens to be something that's also musical and also that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And your students, do you call them students?
I usually say clients, because I do describe myself more as vocal coach than singing teacher. And that's primarily because teacher-student has a very hierarchical kind of feel to it. So I like vocal coach better because it's more about we're working through something together, and I'm not just going, here's some information for you to learn. Nothing against teachers, because there's a lot of amazing teachers in the world, and teaching is part of what I do, but it's also a collaborative experience that we're doing, and the coaching also extends to more than just the vocal technique stuff, but also talking about, going into some of that, what does this really mean for you and why are we doing it?
Yeah, and to understand their motivations for coming to you, and that's and how that would come out in the process. I can envisage that. And it sort of it takes me back to a word you've used a couple of times already, healing. So do you find that comes into the coaching?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, as I said, I've got such a wide range of people, different types of people who I work with. And sometimes, everybody's different in how vulnerable they want to be with me and how much they want to let on about, what it means to them. But I do hear a lot of experiences where people have had, this is a very, very common experience, that someone said something shitty about their voice in their childhood. Or in their early adulthood. So I have people who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who have never, they used to love singing when they were a kid, and then something happened. Someone said something about their voice, made a horrible comment, or they had a really terrifying performance experience, and then they never sang again. And they're just starting to go, you know what, this is really important to me. I really want to be able to sing. I hear that a lot. That is a really, really common journey that I come across. And often it's sometimes it's a parent or a partner or a sibling who made the comment, but often it's actually a music teacher, that said, you can't join the choir because you can't sing, or, whatever.
Oh, yeah, right.
And this makes me extremely angry. So sometimes there are tears in the office in my vocal coaching studio, and that's all welcome. there's tissues, like people can be tears, and sometimes there's a lot of hesitation and we have to find the way that works for them, you know, the titration of the experience little bit by little bit to get comfortable with actually making sound out loud.
I've just learned a new word.
It's a science word.
Sounds very sciencey.
Do you know what I mean? It's like titration is I learned this in high school. We did, you know, there was a test tube and it's like you're mixing two things together little bit by little bit, because if you pour it all in at once, it might explode.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I've lost the question. I was going to ask you the follow-up question.
Well,
that's why I mentioned, like, with my mum, and I referred to her as a student, but that hour that they had together every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. or whatever it was. Funny how I remember the timing. But there was a healing. It was like their busy lives or whatever else was going on out there. It was a safe space where they could do this thing that meant so much to each of them, and they were each getting something out of it. And it's wonderful that you are able to make such a safe space, because a lot of people wouldn't think of, you know, I'll go to a vocal coach to, you know, like I could use some vocal coaching. I'm sure you've already spotted that. But it's that thing of like, I wouldn't have thought that actually there could be something affective. I mean, I suppose I would, based on what I've been saying before, but it wouldn't be part of the expectation of going to a vocal coach to actually do that. So
sometimes it takes people by surprise. Like they'll start singing something and then they start crying and they say, I don't know why I'm crying, I'm sorry, it's totally fine. And some people are very, you know, they come in and they go, well, I have PTSD and this is part of my healing journey and I want to, you know, have my own voice. So yeah.
Cool. That's amazing. I just, look, I every episode, come into it thinking we're going to talk about one thing, we end up talking, and you've just taken us down into that safe space, so to speak, that you create. And it's almost like I just want to know more, but is it something that you see that that work expanding? Is it something you want to do more of? How do you see the dynamic between recording, live, vocal coaching?
Yeah, well, as I said, it's pretty unlikely that the making music part will make any money. I would just, like, my goal financially for my music would just be that it pays for itself, that I don't have to go into debt or take out of my own money to do it, because I have built my business up a little bit. I changed my business model about a year ago, and I have an online library. It's called the Living Voice Library, where I have pre-recorded video lessons and stuff like that. So my work with my clients is partly face-to-face and then partly they learn stuff online through the library. So that's enabled me to have shorter sessions, work with more people, make a little bit more income, and have the learning experience be better for them and also cheaper for them as well. So that I put all that together, and so now I'm actually earning a little bit more, and as someone who's been, you know, very much on the low income for the last 10 years, that's really nice. But I still know that I'm not going to, so as I've just been having these like adult financial conversations, like with my partner, we sat down, you know, we've just moved in together now, we've been for 2.5 years together, and it's like, right, I need to start contributing to the car insurance and registration and that kind of thing, and the car's dying, so we have to buy a new car in like 3 to 5 years. So okay, let's start putting aside this much per week to be able to afford a new car in 3 or 5 years. So all of these adult financial considerations that I have, I know I'm probably never going to own a home, and at this stage, you know, and he also left his, you know, fairly well-paid corporate job to do something that's he's more interested in, and he's so much mentally happier now. He's doing more outdoors kind of work. But we have these adult conversations about money, and it's the more that you, even when you earn a bit more, you go, okay, now I have to actually start thinking about this or this. And if I didn't have music and art, and I just had, like, I'm running my vocal coaching business and doing normal person things, I still am like, okay, can we maybe go on a holiday once every 2 years? And it's a very tricky line to walk. The more that you earn, it seems like the more things there are that you need to. I don't have any superannuation, for example. Like, like I'm self-employed. I'm going to have to work until I die. So there's these things to consider. Anyway, I went on a boring tangent.
No.
The point being that I would like to not have to take out of my own savings in order to make money, because at the moment that's what I do. And I try to, every time I do a gig, if the gig pays, I put that payment directly into the music savings account and try to use that to pay for recording and things. But I have enough money in that account to record one song, you know. So at the moment I'm navigating that, you know, do I apply for grants? Do I think outside the box? How do I try to figure out how to fund the music making and the other creative projects that I want to do? That means that I don't have to A, draw from my own savings, and B, definitely not go into debt.
Yeah. No, it's you said boring, but you used the term business model, and the way you've just described you have a model, you have a plan, you are finding ways to be able to keep doing the thing that you love doing. That's the thing is, and I think these are things that aren't well taught in regular institutions, and you have to figure out for yourself if you're freelance and you have no super. But I think that's really why the whole system needs to change, is so that you can have those things that people in salaried jobs get, or used to. I mean, that's changing too, but without delving too deep into that. But that's the thing, is I think, you know, I love it. We get red hot tips in these episodes, and this is it, right? Make the time to sit down and actually plan it out and think of it as a business. If you want to do this over the long term, how am I going to be able to achieve that? And I love this. I love what you said about, you know, you take money from one thing and you put it into another part of your practice. Yeah.
I think a lot of artists have a bit of an identity about being a bit of a mess, and like just I don't know how to do numbers and money and business, and it feels a bit icky to do business. But it's really essential that an artist have, even if you know, like I know that I'm never going to be making an income that supports me from music, you still want to run it as a smart business and just not be dumb about it. Jen Clower is an amazing singer-songwriter, and they recently did it's all just in, I think, an Excel spreadsheet or just a Google Doc. It's in a Google Doc, and they put this out for everyone it's a guide to making your own music. I forget what the title of it, but it's extremely good advice. I've only very briefly looked at it so far, but the number one rule is do not go into debt.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists go into debt to make their art because we're passionate about it and we feel that we have something really important that we're trying to do, but it can really, really mess up your life if you go into debt. And those kind of business skills, again, I'm pretty grateful that for the vocal coaching work that I do, because that is a business, and I realized at some point that I really didn't need to learn stuff. So I have learnt stuff about marketing, I've learnt stuff about the sales process, I've learnt stuff about accounting, and these kind of things, so that I have a basic understanding in how to run my own business, because I can't afford to hire somebody.
Yeah.
So I've done a fair bit of learning in those things, and then that carries over into my music, and it has enabled me to not make any money from music, but at least I feel like I don't feel totally out of my depth.
No.
You know?
Send me the link to Jen's stuff. I'd love it, and I'll share it in the show notes. Another previous episode, Susan Eldridge, last year.
She's amazing.
Isn't she?
Oh my God. Okay, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about her, but I just have to say, she did a workshop for the TSO, have this thing called...
that's how I met Susan.
What is it called? It's called Growing Pains in the Arts, I think. Which is also amazing that the TSO, Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra, do this program of workshops and sessions for musicians and artists to learn stuff that's helpful for our careers. And in 2023, Susan did one, and I was at that session, and I was just, she not only was the content fantastic and really helpful for, you know, having an arts business, but also just the way she facilitated it. Excuse me. Yeah, she's a fantastic facilitator in the way that it was very hands-on. She had us doing stuff straight away. It wasn't like sitting there listening to someone talk. She's great. And she has her own podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I just listened to an episode of her podcast recently, and she was talking with a lady who who was a singer and maybe a singing teacher, and then she started doing work with people with dementia and early stages of Alzheimer's and stuff like that, and that was really interesting.
Oh yeah. I did the Launceston equivalent. So the week after the session with you in Hobart, I was at the Launceston one. Blew my mind. And then last year, Susan published a guide. Again, link in the show notes. But it's Susan has this thing, you know, whatever creative work you do, 20% of it's the creative work, and the other 80% is you've got to do that stuff that you really, you know, not all of us want to do. And it's important, and that's how you get to build a career that can last, that you can keep doing the thing you love. No one's going to, very few people are out there who are going to show you how to do it. I mean, Susan is exceptional in that. And and there are people out there who are figuring out how we can make art differently to make it part of our lives, but make it part of other people's lives. And what I'm getting, you know, what I've got out of speaking to you for the last hour or so, Tilley, is just how much you care about what you do and how meaningful it is to you. And I'm like I say, I was deeply affected by it the first time I heard you sing. So I look forward to look forward to hearing and feeling where you go next and what happens next. And I'll probably come back to you for some vocal coaching at some point.
Great, no problem.
As my voice starts to sink. But yeah, look, before we wrap up, how can people find you?
Well, all of my music socials are under the username Tilley Song. Tilley has an EY. And I also have a website, tilleysong.com, and my music is on all of the extortionate streaming platforms and Bandcamp if you want to actually give me money.
Go to Bandcamp.
Which will directly go into recording more music. And for my vocal coaching, becktilley.com, that's my full name, BECTILLEY. And I have Instagram and YouTube and stuff for that as well. Try to share useful things about the voice online. And I also have so that's where you can learn about working with me one-on-one, but I also have an online course called Secret Singing Lessons. You can get a free guided audio experience called the Secret Sound Excursion if you go to secretsinging.com. So that's a fun little thing I created a couple of years ago. And look out for more gigs around the place. There's something else that I want to work towards, which is a show around grief. So I'm hopefully working with a couple friends on that. It's very much in just the early planning stages at the moment, but I'd like to be able to tour that to lots of different locations and have that be, again, that kind of space that's facilitated for people to feel stuff and process things. So those are the sort of things that are coming up.
So good. I am very excited for you. And thank you so much for your time, Tilley, and for inviting us in and sharing with us. It's a wonderful thing.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.